Today, you're going to walk away with skills to get better results in sales and relationships. This is Mastermind Sales and Relationship Techniques based on understanding belief systems and asking questions. Michele Guzy, are you ready?
Sandy Ames, I am so ready.
All right, now we've introduced ourselves. First, let's look at when somebody comes to you, whether it's a relationship or a sales situation, meaning all situations in life. They come to you with a belief, Michele. They've got a suitcase, and on that suitcase, there is a sticker that says, holes in shoes are bad. Okay? And then a second person, Michele, comes up to you with a suitcase with a sticker. Identical suitcase, identical sticker. Holes in shoes are bad. Now we have two people who just presented the same belief. So do we sell to them the same?
What exactly is bad about the holes in the shoes? And how do you know shoes with holes are bad? Who said that they're bad in the first place?
Michele, you are such a master of this. You went right to the right answer without getting it wrong first.
Wow.
Most salespeople and most people in relationships would just say, holes in shoes aren't bad, and here's why. And that's where you lose people because you break rapport.
We really need to remember that limiting beliefs are literally just learned fears. It's not something you're born with, it's something that you learned. And these fears become your excuses, and your excuses become your reason why you can't do something, or you must do something else, or you should, or you won't, or you're supposed to. So when we're talking about sales, whether it's in your career, in your relationship, how do we get through what we call those excuses? And that is the word we're going to focus on today. How do we overcome the B word?
Maybe we should rename this course, Get Over the Big Butt.
Let go of your big butt.
Yeah, exactly. Because now that we know these limiting beliefs are excuses, holes in shoes are bad is actually an excuse. If we were to say to our partner or this potential customer, that's just an excuse, how's that going to go?
Right. And that's going to just trigger a negative emotion automatically.
So even though we know that it's an excuse, we're not going to say it's an excuse. We're going to learn to ask questions. We have two reasons for asking those questions. A, we need to find out, what is this limiting belief? What is it that they really mean? And then once we get that, how do we ask the right questions to have the best result, whether it's a sale or a relationship? So what's a question you can ask to unpack that suitcase of holes in shoes are bad?
First off, how does that belief make you feel? So one of the things that people don't realize is when we have limiting beliefs, it's triggering those emotions. How does that belief make you feel? Do you feel insecure? Do you feel angry? Do you feel sad? Do you feel confused? Are you frustrated? So if you say holes in shoes are bad, well, how does that make you feel? Well, I feel frustrated. And if you weren't frustrated, then what?
All right, so I have the answer. Suitcase number one. How does it make me feel? See all those holes? It makes me feel too cold in the winter. Okay, so all of these holes make me feel too cold in the winter. That's really how I feel. Okay, but wait, here's suitcase number two, different person, same sticker, holes in shoes are bad. This makes me feel like having a parrot as a pet is not safe when he likes to crawl on your shoes and eat them. Holes in shoes are bad. So we both presented the same thing, but how could you have known which person I was? How could you have known what I was talking about? So step one in today's process, learn how to ask questions to unpack why they have these beliefs, how they have these beliefs. And the question you offered, Michele, how does it make you feel?
How does it make you feel? So that's step number one. Take a look at the emotions, take a look at the feelings. I also want to take a look at, as we talked about, what is the but behind your excuse? So if people say, oh, I want to lose weight, but I don't want to go on a diet, that actually gives me two things to play with. I want to buy some new shoes, but I don't like holes in my shoes. That gives me something to play with. What if we turn the but, because Nobody likes to have a big butt.
Just to be clear, you mean single T butt.
But I just did, right? If we turn that but into an and, then we have the two conflicts separated, right? I want to have new shoes, but I don't want to have, I don't like the holes in my shoes. I want to lose weight, but I don't want to go on diets, or I don't like diets. But what if we change that to an and? I want to lose weight and I don't like going on a diet. So now I have two things that I can work with, and I can break it down to where you have an option of which one that you want to choose. Because everything in a limiting belief seems like a conflict. It seems like there's no way to get around that we can't make a change.
Yes. By asking questions, we find where they are in their beliefs and we work with that. We don't push against to try to change it. We do it through asking questions. So now person A suitcase, I don't like holes in my shoes because all those little holes that are designed in the shoe are made so it's breathable. You as a salesperson, not only are no longer going to lose that sale because you didn't know or understand or listen to the person, you're going to make two sales. You're going to say, oh, so we need a pair of running shoes for winter and we need a pair of running shoes for summer. So now you've made two sales. And the person
we need a pair of shoes that can handle any type of bird activity in our house. And that's like a third pair of shoes. So I just sold 3 pairs of shoes right now.
And you sold a rack to put your shoes away so the bird can't get them. You see, once you understand by asking questions, not telling them they're wrong and not trying to diagnose them, by asking the right questions, we understand what their beliefs are and then how we get the best results. Let me throw another thing at you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
He called me, therefore he likes me, so obviously I should get a haircut.
Obviously, you should.
You see, but you see how these are all limiting beliefs. He called me, maybe it does mean he likes me, maybe it doesn't, but I made it mean that. And then I made it mean, therefore, I should get a haircut. So how do we ask questions to set that right before we move on to get the best result?
All right. Another way that we can use this in NLP, instead of asking the why questions, asking the what questions. Well, what if you did get a haircut? Then what? What if you didn't get a haircut? Then what's going to happen? So what if, then what? What if you got a haircut and you went on a date and you went on this new relationship journey? Then what's going to happen? What if you didn't get a haircut and you still went in this date and still had a relationship with this person and you took that journey? Then what's going to happen? So if we eliminate the why and go into the what and the how and the therefore, then people can start thinking a little bit differently and get out of the fear and get out of the excuse that's holding them back from what they really want.
Yes. And all of this magic comes through learning how to ask questions, because number one in NLP, in all relationships, in all communication, is rapport. We may know that they're wrong, but we're not going to tell them. We're going to ask questions and they're going to teach us even more because we're listening. And everybody.
Sandy, you know what I think? Actually, I think you're wrong about that.
Michele, I love that you expressed that and that you felt so safe to really open this communication so we can get to a better place. How do you know that I'm wrong?
I just know.
Because
I'm always right.
And when you're always right,
that means you're wrong.
And you like that. There you go. 2 professionals in action. Here's a real life story. You ready, Michele?
Yes.
When I was a kid, I loved horseback riding and I was really starting to get into it. My parents were paying for lessons. So now I go to sleepaway camp in Pennsylvania. We paid extra so I could be part of the horseback riding program. And then, Michele, I got kicked out of the horseback riding program. I was a kid and I didn't know what I was doing. I knew how to ride a horse, but I didn't know how to communicate. So apparently, according to them, I don't even remember, every time we would come to horseback riding class, they would assign each kid a horse for the day. It was usually a different horse. And always, no matter which horse they assigned to me, I would be like, oh man, I didn't want that horse. That horse sucks, right? So they kicked me out of the program. That was an expensive program that my parents were paying for. They just lost me as a customer and every family that we know. Okay. Because they said you're too difficult. Michele, Had
Well, wait
they
a minute. Hold on. That actually is a true statement. So I'm not sure who's right and who's wrong in this whole situation. All right, but continue. Go ahead. So the horses, you had too many to choose from.
Yeah,
And
but you really
wanted this one, that one.
in being funny, you really made a good point. I don't know who's right and who's wrong. We come from this place where we're trained to have to believe that there is right and there is wrong, but there's no such thing. It's just made up anyway. And that's removing the butt. It's taking your butt off the horse. Okay. All right. So now, rather than telling us the way it is, just to get rid of the problem, which was me, how might you, knowing what you now know with asking questions, unpacking beliefs, step one, unpacking beliefs, how would you have handled that situation if you were running that horse situation?
What's the reason that you want to ride this horse or practice on this horse? Now I'm going to elicit more information from you.
You nailed it, because they never asked me, well, why not this horse? Why that horse? Because when they find out why the yes horse, now we can find more yeses perhaps in that no horse or in other horses.
Well, and what was probably going on is, especially in a situation like that, they already had a goal in mind. They probably already had a horse in mind for you, because that was just a structure of how they needed to follow. Well, Sandy's coming in, she's going to take Bob the horse, and then Mary over here, she gets Sally the horse. So it was just a structure. But you came in and you blew out their entire structure of what they thought was supposed to be right for that training, for that, for the camp. And you changed it all around and created what we call, our fancy little word, anxiety. You created stress with your excitement. All you wanted to do was, I want that horse.
Okay, so
I want
now
to
let's
try
play the
this
game.
one.
Now let's play the game. Somebody is starting to learn NLP, so they do the right thing with me. And they say, Sandy, tell us, which horse do you like? Well, I like Max the horse. Why do you like Max? Well, obviously because he's brown. Now, how do you work with that information?
Sandy, how do you know that that is the right horse for you to ride today?
Because he's brown.
Yes, he's brown.
Yes. Brown horses are softer.
And how do you know that exactly?
There you go. So how do you know? What would you prefer? How do you know? Really, number one is assume positive intent. They mean something and they know it. So honor them. Don't make them wrong, even though they're very wrong right now. Don't make them wrong, even though we know they're very wrong. We want to get to right. So assume positive intent. First question. It's either, well, what do you want? Or what is your preference? What is your preference?
Right. What do you want? How do you, and what is it that you want in your life? Okay. So that's the first question. The second question could be, how do you know that that's what you want?
Brilliant. Because most people, if they get that far, you know what they ask? They ask why. And you know what why does? It breaks rapport. So you're getting to the why, but you're doing it in a way where not only are you not breaking rapport, you're building rapport, right? So you're asking why, but the way you ask why is, how did you say it, Michele?
So what do you want? How do you know that's what you want?
How do you know? And another way of asking how do you know is, for what purpose?
For what purpose? And then we can also ask, if you did get what you wanted, how is your life going to be different? So, what is it that you want? How do you know that's what you want? And if you did get that, how will your life be different? How will your relationship be different? How will your job be different? How will riding that horse, Max, the big brown horse, be different? How will you know?
Can you imagine allowing the space for that much empowerment for a 7-year-old, where they can give you the answer that they know, but nobody ever asks? Right? Well, I know that if I ride the brown horse, I'm going to be the fastest rider. Oh, you want to be the fastest? Well, did you know that the spotted horse has this? So if you see what I'm saying? So these questions get you to better outcomes than you could have had before. So with the shoes, we sold 2 pairs plus a rack.
Wait a minute, 3 pairs of shoes. We need the parrot shoes. We got the holy shoes. We got to have the parrot shoes. The bird shoes. So just in case a bird attacks your feet, like that happens to everybody all the time, we need to have a 3rd pair of shoes. And the rack, which is brilliant for your shoes, but also the bird, which you have, can sit on the rack and observe your shoes and protect your shoes because they have holes in there. So we ended up with items for not only you, shoes for you, but we also have a bird rack and toy for the bird. We've gone shopping for multiple items at the shoe store that we didn't even know was a pet store.
There is a perfect example of belief systems. When I said rack, I was thinking a rack to protect the shoes. You just wanted to stick my bird on a rack.
I know. I am thinking the poor. It's a perch. Look at you. Now you went into the whole wrong assumption. Sandy, how did you go into that assumption right there?
Because
that
I came with a suitcase.
Rack your bird.
I came with a suitcase and you came with the suitcase. And this is how we establish better communication, stronger relationships, which equals more sales and better outcomes for everyone. And before we end this training course here, which started with how do we understand what people's beliefs are? And then how do we ask the right questions, right? Before we end it, I want to share a story about someone who studied this stuff with me. She studied a little bit with you too. And her job is to work with legal teams on the corporate level. Literally, due to the lessons that we taught her, she used these NLP question and rapport communication techniques and saved the company millions of dollars by taking what was going to be a lawsuit, establishing rapport, cleaning it up, shutting it down within a 1 hour conversation.
Wow.
Millions.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Rapport, you ask the questions, you understand where people are coming from, and life is good.
And life is good. And one last thing to think about, it's the picture that people create in their mind. So when we were talking about the shoes and we were talking about the bird, we were talking about the horse, what is the visual? What is the picture that popped into your mind? So when we talked about the rack, I actually saw the shoe rack and I saw in my mind the bird sitting on the shoe rack that was vertical and using that as a perch or as a ladder. So people have images in their mind, which then triggers their thoughts, triggers their emotions, triggers their feelings, triggers what they're going to say. So we also need to take a look at, and this is going to be another one of our talks, what is the picture in your head that creates your reality in this moment? Where are you going to be putting this rack? Where would you keep these shoes that would be the most effective for you? Can you see that? So using the visual is so important in staying in rapport in order to get into somebody's mind. And if you can picture what they are picturing or understand that, then you can take them anywhere that you want them to go.
Knowing they want to go there too, knowing it's going to be a best outcome for them too, of course.
And 4 shoes are even better than 3 shoes, because what if you want to have shoes with absolutely no holes at all?
You know why Michele is saying this? If you've ever seen her shoe collection, if you've ever seen her shoe collection, it's bigger than my entire New York City.
I have 5 pairs of shoes on 70 pairs of racks. Just a couple, just a couple. And some have holes. Now I'm going to think of you, Sandy. Every time I wear my holy shoes, I'm going to be thinking of you. Thank you so much.
Because it's a religious experience. You are so very welcome. Michele, for the savvy students who are taking notes.
Savvy, yes.
You got to be savvy if you're taking notes on this. First, unpacking beliefs and then understanding how to ask questions to get to best results. Just bullet point down. What are some really great questions to have in your pocket?
Okay, these are excellent questions to have. Number 1, asking what will happen if you did do blank, or what would happen if you don't? So what happens if you do? What happens if you don't? Another question that I'd like to have, and I use a lot, is, what stops you? When somebody tells me, well, I can't do this or I can't do that. Well, what stops you? What stops you from doing that? And one of my favorite things to ask people is when they use the phrase, I don't know. I don't know. What do you want to be able to ride the yellow horse today or the pink horse? I don't know. I love all horses. And instead asking this, if you did know, what would it be? What happens if you do? What happens if you don't? Asking, well, what stops you from? And then when they say, I don't know, ask this very, very simple question back. If you did know, then what? If you did know, because then that just opens up so many doors, because limiting beliefs close doors. You have the blinders. It's like you're in New York, you have the
your horse blinder.
horses, you got your blinders on there.
Yeah.
If we go through our life with having blinders on our eyes and just this one point of view, we're not going to be able to see all of the other options that are out there. And then that just keeps us in a state of fear. And those excuses are going to hold you back from having your success, happiness, prosperity, health, wealth, and abundance in your life. So all I want to do is take off your blinders.
Let's take off the blinders on just that very last question, which is such a good question. If you did know, let's say somebody's still having a hard time answering it, then you could say, well, if you could pretend to know, it softens it a little bit, gives a little more. If you could pretend to know. And if they still can't answer that question, you say, well, even if it's not possible for you, that's okay. Has it ever occurred for anyone else? Is it possible for anyone else? Pick someone you know, or a famous person or a made up fictional character. If they were to do it, what might they say? You see, so you can still create more and more distance so they feel more comfortable.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. So bringing other people in, bringing the other options in. You know, what else has somebody done? So that's just expanding your thinking. NLP helps people expand their thinking, and when you use this as a tool, you can work with this in your business, in your relationships with your kids. It's just expansion. And when we're expanding, we're growing. And when we're growing, we're changing. And then we're feeling just so much better about everything in our life.
Good. So I hope if you are savvy, you are taking notes on your favorite questions. Some other things to add to that list of bullet point notes that you can write down and stick in your pocket. Instead of asking why, replace it with how would you know? How is that possible? What are the possibilities? Or for what purpose? For what purpose? Instead of asking why, for what purpose, right?
For what purpose, yeah.
And again, always by maintaining and establishing rapport and not making it seem interrogating, which is why, well, if you could pretend to know, or if it's been possible for someone else, how might it be possible for them? So you're just creating safer distances based on these now options that you have for asking questions.
Perfect. I love it. And it's all about the shoes. Really. It's all about how many shoes. Don't worry about your butts. Just worry about your shoes.
Michele, that was fantastic. You're a good teacher.